The file was still warm when they closed it. Not officially, not on paper, but in practice. Ethan Miller disappeared on a Tuesday afternoon. At 3:18 p.m. By Friday, the calls slowed. By the next week, they stopped asking questions. By the end of the month, his name was already being said differently, in the past tense. His mother felt it before anyone told her. That quiet shift, that subtle distance, the way officers stopped writing things down, the way promises turned into silence. The case didn't end. It simply stopped mattering. Before this story continues, before the waiting years unfold, take a moment, subscribe to Truepulse Narratives TV. Not for entertainment, not for noise, but so stories like this don't disappear the way Ethan did. If you believe forgotten cases still deserve truth, stay with us. Now listen carefully. Ethan Miller was 23 years old, born in Dayton, Ohio, raised in a quiet neighborhood where doors stayed unlocked and neighbors waved without knowing why. He lived with his mother, Karen Miller, in a small, sun-faded house near the edge of town. His younger sister, Lena, had just started college 2 states away. Nothing about Ethan suggested trouble. No criminal record, no known enemies, no history of disappearing. On the morning he vanished, he ate cereal from a chipped bowl, left his phone charging on the counter, told his mother he would be back before dinner. He never was. Karen waited that first night without panic. Dinner stayed warm, longer than it should have. The porch light stayed on. At midnight, she called his phone, straight to voicemail. By morning, she was at the police station. They told her to wait. Told her adults disappear sometimes. Told her 24 hours mattered. She sat on a plastic chair beneath a flickering light, hands folded too tightly. When the report was finally taken, the officer asked routine questions: height, weight, clothing. Then came the question that changed everything. Does he do drugs? Karen paused, said no. The officer nodded, but wrote something anyway. That was the first crack, small, almost invisible, but it widened with time. Lena drove home the next day. Classes abandoned, books left behind. She stood in Ethan's room and touched everything. His jacket, his desk, his unmade bed. Nothing felt wrong, and that was what terrified her. They printed flyers, posted online, walked streets until their legs burned. Karen called the station every morning. At first, they answered warmly, then briefly, then not at all. 2 weeks in, the lead detective changed. No explanation, just a new voice on the phone. He asked questions Karen had already answered, forgot details she had repeated dozens of times. Ethan's name began slipping down the board, from active to pending to something unnamed. They said resources were limited. They said there were no new leads. What they did not say was worse. They did not say they had stopped looking. People stopped asking how Karen was holding up, stopped knocking, stopped bringing food. Life resumed around the absence. Cars passed, mail arrived, trash was collected. Only Ethan didn't return. Karen kept his phone bill active, even though the phone was gone. She said it out loud once, alone in the kitchen. If he calls, I don't want it disconnected. Inside the station, Ethan's file grew thinner, not because answers were found, but because questions stopped being added. A tip came in about a man matching his description. It was logged, but never followed up. Another witness called twice. No return call was made, no one noticed, or worse, someone noticed and decided it didn't matter. Lena was not like her mother. She did not wait quietly. She requested records, requested timelines, requested explanations. She learned quickly how difficult it was to get answers without a badge. Emails went unanswered. Appointments were postponed. Once, an officer sighed and said, "We have more urgent cases." Lena asked what made Ethan less urgent. There was no response. 3 months became 6. 6 became a year. The house stayed the same. The calendar did not. Karen marked days on the fridge, then stopped. Hope didn't disappear, it hardened, and it became something she carried carefully, afraid that setting it down would shatter it. No one used the word cold out loud, but it was everywhere. In the tone, in the pauses, in the way Ethan's name was now paired with phrases like, "If something comes up," or "We'll let you know." Nothing ever came up. No one ever let them know. By the end of the first year, Ethan Miller had become a memory to everyone except the people who loved him. The case was still open, but the hope had begun to freeze. Time didn't stop after Ethan vanished. It just stopped, including him. Winter came early that year. Snow covered the sidewalks where flyers had once been taped. Most of them were gone now, torn down, faded, forgotten. Karen left one up anyway. On a utility pole near the grocery store, she replaced it every time it peeled away. She told herself someone might still be looking. The last person to see Ethan was a gas station clerk. Her name was Marissa Cole. 28, night shift, quiet voice. She remembered Ethan because he paid in cash, because he smiled, because he asked if the coffee was fresh. Security footage confirmed it. Ethan at the counter, 3:18 p.m. He left on foot. That footage became the final official record of him existing. No one traced his steps after that. No canvas beyond 2 blocks. No follow-up interview with Marissa for months. When Lena finally spoke to her, Marissa looked confused. "I thought the police talked to you already," she said. They hadn't. 3 weeks after the disappearance, a man called the tip line. He said he saw Ethan arguing with someone near the bus terminal. Said voices were raised. Said Ethan looked scared. The call was logged. Assigned a number. Filed. No officer ever contacted the caller again. When Lena obtained the record later, there was a single note beside it. No corroboration. Nothing else. Karen bought a notebook. She stopped trusting her memory. Stopped trusting phone calls. Every conversation went into the notebook. Dates, names, what was promised. Most promises were vague. "We're monitoring the situation. We'll check into that. We'll circle back." No one ever circled back. Detective Paul Hargreave was the first assigned to Ethan's case. He visited the house twice, asked about Ethan's routines, his friends, his job prospects. Then, without warning, he transferred departments. Karen found out from a voicemail, left after business hours. No return number. The new detective never visited the house. Lena requested the phone records. The request was denied at first, then delayed, then partially approved. Ethan's phone last pinged near the River District, an area dense with warehouses and old rail lines. Lena asked why no search was conducted there. The answer was short. There wasn't enough evidence. Lena asked what counted as enough. The line went quiet. Ethan had a close friend named Marcus Reed. They grew up together. Same schools, same bus routes. Marcus assumed the police had spoken to him. They never did. When Lena finally tracked him down, Marcus looked stunned. "I was with him that morning," he said. "We argued. Not violently, about money, about leaving town." Marcus told Ethan he was thinking about moving west. Ethan said he might follow. That information never made it into the file. As Lena gathered records, something became clear. Ethan's case wasn't unique. Other disappearances followed the same rhythm. Initial urgency, then drift, then silence. Young men, working-class families, No media pressure. Cases didn't close. They just cooled. Karen contacted local news. One outlet replied. They asked for photos, scheduled an interview, then cancelled. They said there wasn't enough public interest. Karen wondered how interest was supposed to grow if no one ever heard the story. It was nearly 18 months in. Karen sat alone at the kitchen table, the notebook open, pages filled. She stared at Ethan's handwriting on a grocery list. Milk, bread, coffee, ordinary things. She whispered his name, not as a question, as a reminder. She decided then she would not let the case fade quietly, even if everyone else had. By the time the second year began, the case had not advanced, but the family had changed. They were no longer waiting. They were watching. And somewhere beneath the paperwork, beneath the missed calls and unasked questions, the truth was still there, untouched, waiting. By the third year, Ethan Miller's name had stopped showing up in meetings. It wasn't spoken aloud at the station. It wasn't flagged in weekly reviews. It existed only on paper. And paper doesn't ask questions. Lena requested the full case file. What she received was thin. Too thin. No timeline map. No movement reconstruction. No list of eliminated suspects. It looked less like an investigation and more like a formality. Lena laid everything out on the dining table. Karen sat beside her, quiet. Lena noticed something first. Dates didn't line up. A witness interview logged 2 days before the witness reported calling. A search authorization dated after the search was supposedly completed. Errors like that don't happen once. They repeat. The River District sat less than a mile from the gas station. Old warehouses, closed docks, poor lighting. It was where people went when they didn't want to be seen. Ethan's phone last pinged there, yet there was no record of a sweep. No dogs, no volunteers, no boats. Lena asked a retired officer she knew why. He didn't hesitate. Those searches cost money, he said, and they don't like opening things they can't close. A small convenience store near the river still had cameras. Lena visited on her own. The owner, Mr. Alvarez, remembered Ethan, not by name, by kindness. He helped me lift a crate, he said. Didn't have to. Mr. Alvarez mentioned something else, a camera used to face the alley behind the store. It was removed 2 weeks after Ethan vanished. Lena asked who removed it. Mr. Alvarez shrugged. They said it was city maintenance. There was no maintenance record. Through a public records request, Lena discovered an officer had been in the River District that same afternoon. Officer Daniel Crow. His patrol log showed him nearby, but his report said no unusual activity. Lena asked to speak with him. The department declined. Karen asked why. No answer came back. Karen didn't whisper anymore. She called council officers. She emailed supervisors. She attended town halls. She asked the same question every time. What was done for my son? Most answers were polished, careful, empty. One official suggested Ethan may have chosen to leave. Karen stood up. My son packed nothing, she said. He left his jacket. He left his money. He left me. The room went silent. Lena found something buried. A supplemental report. Unreferenced, unsigned. It mentioned a man known only as Ray, seen arguing with Ethan near the bus terminal. That was it. No last name, no follow-up, no attempt to identify him. Lena ran the nickname through old arrest logs. One result appeared repeatedly. Raymond Hale, prior assaults, known to frequent the River District, no record of him ever being questioned. Karen received a call late one night. Blocked number. A man spoke quietly. I don't have much time, he said, but your son didn't just disappear. Karen's hands shook. He said he worked security near the docks back then. He said he reported a disturbance, said police arrived quickly, too quickly, then he hung up. The number never rang again. Lena brought everything forward. The camera removal, the patrol log, Raymond Hale, the call. The department issued a statement. No new evidence at this time. That was all. Karen stood at the same kitchen table. The notebook was thicker now, heavier. She closed it. We stop asking them, she said, and we start telling everyone else. Lena nodded, because silence only protects one side. By now, the case wasn't just cold, it was uncomfortable. And when a case becomes uncomfortable, someone usually worked very hard to keep it that way. But pressure was building, and cracks were beginning to show. The flyer appeared first, stapled to a corkboard outside a grocery store, taped to a bus stop near the river, pinned beside missing pets and yard sale notices. Have you seen Ethan Miller? And Karen didn't ask permission. She printed 500 copies. People began to stop her. Some whispered condolences. Some avoided eye contact. And some said nothing, but stared too long. A woman in her 60s approached Karen near the pharmacy. I remember your son, she said softly. He was polite. Always said thank you. Karen smiled for the first time in weeks. Then the woman added, I also remember the police telling us to stay away from the river that night. Karen's smile faded. That detail had never been shared publicly. Lena compared Ethan's case to others. 3 disappearances in 10 years, all near the river district, all quietly archived. Different names, same outcome, no arrests, no bodies, no closure. And the same officer's name appeared twice, Daniel Crowe. Lena finally got a message, an email, no signature. Crowe wasn't alone that night. It came with a grainy photo. A patrol car, parked near Dock 14. Time stamped the night Ethan vanished. Another car was beside it, unmarked. The security guard called again. This time, Lena answered. I saw them arguing, he said. You're Ethan and a guy older than him. Raymond Hale. I heard shouting, then a fall. Lena asked why he never came forward. They told me it was handled, he said, and that I didn't want trouble. He paused. I think he hit his head. Lena filed one more request. Medical transport logs. She didn't expect anything, but something came back. An ambulance dispatched that night. Near the docks, no patient listed, just a note. Refusal of transport. There was no signature, no name, but there was a badge number. Crowe's. Karen stood in front of a local reporter. Her voice shook, but she didn't stop. My son mattered, she said, and someone decided he didn't. The story aired that night. By morning, it had spread. Comments poured in, memories resurfaced, anonymous tips flooded the newsroom, and the department issued another statement, this one longer. Officer Daniel Crowe was placed on administrative leave, pending review. It wasn't justice, but it was movement. Karen watched the news from her couch. She didn't cheer. She whispered, Tell me where my son is. Search teams returned to the docks. This time, they didn't rush. They didn't skim. And near an old piling, they found something caught beneath debris. A shoe. Ethan's. For years, the river held its breath. Now, it was speaking. And the truth, once buried under procedure and silence, was beginning to surface. But answers come with consequences. And not everyone was ready for what the next part would reveal. The shoe was the first crack. The river was starting to speak. And once it spoke, it didn't stop. Karen stood at the dock. Her knees shook. She wasn't looking for a body. She was looking for proof. Proof that her son had been real. Proof that he had been taken. A police officer approached her. He didn't look like Crowe's type. He looked tired. "I'm sorry," he said. "Please don't come down here again." Karen stared at him. "You don't get to say that," she whispered. Lena had been digging through old case files. She found something no one else had. A report from 2009. A missing man. Same district, same pattern, same river. But the report was labeled differently. Not missing, not lost. It was labeled uncooperative subject. The note was brief. Subject resisted arrest. Was slipped. Went into water. No name, no body, no follow-up. Lena stared at the words, and then she realized they had been hiding the truth in plain sight. Lena met with an older detective, retired. He didn't want to talk, but he did. He said the department was under pressure, not from the public, from somewhere else. People don't want the river investigated, he said. People with money, he looked at Lena, and people with power. The photo of the unmarked car resurfaced. Lena traced the plate. It led to a private security firm. A firm contracted by the town's biggest donor. A man with influence. A man who owned the docks. A man whose name had never been questioned. Karen answered, a voice on the line. Soft. Calm. "I know where your son is." Karen froze. "Who is this?" she demanded. The voice paused, then said, "Meet me at the river. Tonight." Karen's hands went cold. She didn't trust it, but she couldn't ignore it. Karen arrived at the river. No lights, no crowd, just the sound of water. A figure stepped out of the shadows. Not a stranger. A man she recognized. A man who had been there the night Ethan vanished. Raymond Hale. The man who claimed he saw Ethan fall. He looked different, worn, like he'd been carrying a weight for years. "I didn't tell the truth," he said. Karen didn't move. He continued. "They told me to keep quiet," he whispered. "They said it would be safer." He swallowed. "And I believed them." Karen's eyes filled. "But he's alive," Raymond said. Karen's breath stopped. "He's alive?" she whispered. Raymond nodded. "He's not in the river," he said. "He's not in the city." Raymond gave her an address, a storage facility outside town. He said the facility belonged to the dock owner, the same man with influence, the man who controlled the river, the man who controlled the truth. Karen drove there. Her hands on the wheel shook, but she didn't stop. The door opened. Inside was a room, not a storage space, a hidden apartment, a bed, a chair, a small desk, and on the desk, a phone that had been used recently. Karen stepped closer. Then she saw it. A note, written in Ethan's handwriting. "Mom, if you're reading this, I'm still here." Karen's vision blurred. She fell to her knees. She held the note, and for the first time in months, she felt something like hope. A knock at the door. Karen froze. She wasn't alone. The door opened. Crow stepped in, his face hard, his eyes cold. "You shouldn't be here," he said. Karen didn't look at him. She held the note tighter. "I found him," she said. Crow laughed once. "No," he said. "You found the truth." He stepped closer. "This isn't what you think." Karen's voice shook. "What is it then?" Crow's expression softened slightly. "Your son was never meant to be found," he said. Karen's heart sank. "What do you mean?" she whispered. Crow sighed. "He was part of something," he said. "Something that started years ago." He paused. "Your son was a witness." Karen's breath caught. Crow continued. "He saw something at the docks, something he wasn't supposed to see." Karen's eyes widened. "And they took him," Crow said. "They didn't kill him." Karen's throat tightened. "They hid him," Crow said, "because if the truth came out, the town would crumble." Karen left the storage unit. She called Lena. Lena arrived within minutes. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. They walked into the parking lot, and they waited. The police arrived. Not the ones Karen knew. A new team. A team from outside the town. A team that didn't belong to the river. They had warrants. They had orders. They had a reason. The dock owner was arrested. The private security firm was shut down. The hidden unit was exposed. Crow was taken in. No one cheered. No one shouted. The truth had arrived. Quietly, like a river finally reaching the sea. Karen sat on the dock. The river flowed. The city lights reflected. She held Ethan's note. She whispered his name. And the night stayed still. Because for once, the silence wasn't empty. It was full. The arrest didn't make noise. No sirens screamed through the streets. No crowd gathered. The dock owner was escorted out through a side door. Hands cuffed, head down. The river kept moving. News spread slowly, not as a headline, as a whisper, at the coffee shop, at the bus stop, in hallways where people pretended not to listen. They said the river was being searched again. They said outside, investigators had taken over. They said the docks were closed for safety. People nodded, but no one asked questions. They already knew the answers. For months, Ethan Miller had been a missing poster, a face taped to poles, a name people avoided saying out loud. Now his name came back. Not softly, but firmly. Lena watched it happen. A clerk at City Hall said his name without hesitation. A teacher asked about him during roll call. A radio host mentioned him without lowering his voice. It was small, but it mattered. Federal officers catalogued everything inside the storage unit. Not just Ethan's note, and not just the phone. There were logs, schedules, keys, evidence that the space had been used before. Other names appeared, some crossed out, some left unfinished. Lena stood over the files. Her jaw tightened. This wasn't a single crime. It was a system. Karen wasn't allowed to see Ethan yet. They said it wasn't safe. They said he needed care. They said she needed patience. She nodded. She had learned patience the hard way. She sat in the same chair every day, hands folded, eyes fixed on the door. She didn't cry anymore. She was saving it. A council meeting was called. First one in years that people actually attended. The room filled slowly. No shouting, no signs, just people standing in the back, listening. The mayor spoke, carefully, and he said there had been oversight failures. He said there would be reviews. Someone in the back stood up, an older woman, voice steady. How many? The mayor paused. He didn't answer. He didn't need to. Part of the river was diverted. Not fully, just enough. Workers found more than debris. They found shoes, phones, wallets, things that had once belonged to people. Each item was logged, bagged, named. The river gave back what it had been forced to carry. He spoke quietly, to doctors first, then to investigators. He didn't dramatize. He didn't embellish. He described times, rooms, faces. He said he was told to stay quiet, that it was for his own good, that if he cooperated, he would go home. He never went home, until now. Crow sat alone, no badge, no authority, just a chair and a recorder. When asked why he didn't report it, he stared at the floor. They told me it wasn't my job, he said. When asked who they were, he went quiet. The silence was recorded. It became evidence. Karen was finally allowed in. The room was plain, hospital white, machines humming. Ethan looked smaller, but real, very real. He opened his eyes. He saw her. She didn't run. She didn't collapse. She walked to him. She took his hand, and she stayed. The town issued a statement. It used careful language. It avoided names. Karen didn't read it. Lena didn't either. They didn't need apologies, they needed accountability. And it was already moving. Slow, heavy, unstoppable. Weeks later, Karen returned to the river. Not to search, not to wait, just to stand. The water moved like it always had, but it didn't feel the same. Some truths don't rush. They rise, and once they surface, they don't sink again. Ethan's recovery did not look like a miracle. There were no sudden turns, no dramatic moments, just time. Slow, measured, unforgiving. He learned the room first, then the hallway, then the rhythm of the nurse's steps. Some days he spoke, some days he didn't. No one pushed. They had learned what silence could do. Karen stayed anyway, every morning, every evening. She read the same book aloud, not because he asked, because she had read it to him when he was small. Familiar things mattered now. The investigation didn't slow, it widened. What they found wasn't dramatic, it was worse. Forms stamped without review, calls logged and ignored, reports rewritten to sound smaller, cleaner, safer. Every signature told a story, not of violence, of permission. They came forward quietly, one at a time. And a father who had stopped hoping years ago. A sister who had moved states to escape the questions. A wife who still paid a phone bill tied to a number that never rang. They didn't want attention. They wanted answers. And now finally, they were getting them. The docks stayed closed. Tourists noticed. Locals avoided the area entirely. Businesses complained. Officials reassured. But something had shifted. People no longer trusted explanations. They asked for proof. And proof was finally being shown. He signed it without ceremony. No lawyer present, no speech prepared, just facts, names, dates, places he should have gone and didn't. When he finished, he exhaled. Not relief, resignation, some weight doesn't lift, it just moves. One afternoon, Ethan spoke without prompting. He remembered the sound of the river at night, not loud, constant. He remembered being told to keep his head down. He remembered believing them. Karen listened. She didn't interrupt. She didn't correct him. She let the memories exist. They needed space. A date was set. No spectacle, no crowd, just a line on a calendar. But the town felt it. People started paying attention to court listings again. They recognized names. They remembered stories they'd been told to forget. Justice doesn't always arrive loudly. Sometimes it waits until people are ready to hear it. Lena returned to the river one last time. She stood where Ethan had disappeared. The water looked ordinary. That bothered her. Then she realized something. The river hadn't changed. People had. And that was enough. Karen didn't hate the town anymore. She didn't love it either. She understood it. It had chosen comfort over courage. And paid for it. Now it was choosing differently. Late, but not too late. One evening, Ethan asked to go outside. Just the bench. Just the air. They sat together. No words. The sun dipped low. And for the first time in years, nothing was missing. Not every missing person comes home. Not every town faces itself. But sometimes, one name refuses to disappear. One family refuses to stop asking. And the truth finds its way back. Quietly. Relentlessly. The courtroom did not feel important. That was the first thing Karen noticed. No grandeur, no drama, just benches, walls, a clock that ticked too loudly. This was where years ended. Quietly. Not everyone came. Some seats stayed empty. But the families were there. Together. Not speaking. Not looking around. They didn't need to. They knew why they had come. He walked in slowly. Supported. Steady. The room shifted. Not with gasps, with attention. People leaned forward without realizing it. because he was not supposed to be there. And yet, there he was. The prosecution didn't raise their voice. They didn't tell a story. They laid out time, logs, transfers, missed follow-ups, ignored flags. They let the pattern speak, and it did. They talked about workload, about understaffing, about protocol, about misunderstanding. The words landed and slid off because the facts were heavier. He did not look at the families. He did not look at Ethan. He looked at the desk and answered. Shortly, precisely. He admitted what he knew and what he chose not to know. There was no anger in his voice, just something close to exhaustion. They played the audio, not dramatic, not edited, just a call, a report, a voice asking for help, and a system responding with delay. The room went still, not because it was shocking, because it was familiar, too familiar. He wasn't required to, no one expected him to, but he did. His voice was uneven, not weak, careful. He spoke about waiting, about thinking help would come, about how silence changes shape when it lasts long enough. He didn't accuse, he described. That was enough. It did not take long. Responsibility was assigned, charges upheld, consequences outlined. No cheers followed, no tears either, just breathing, collective, released. Outside, the air felt different, lighter, not because the past had changed, because it had been named. The families stood together again, not celebrating, acknowledging. They had not imagined it. They had not exaggerated. They had been right. They left early, didn't wait for interviews. Nad didn't want attention. They went home. A place that had once felt incomplete. Now it felt usable again. Not perfect, but real. She filed it herself, every detail, every correction. She didn't write conclusions. She let the record stand. Some truths don't need interpretation. They just need to exist. Policies changed. Oversight expanded. Training revised. It wasn't redemption. It was responsibility. And that mattered. The missing are still remembered. Their names spoken more carefully now. Their stories no longer reduced. Because one case did not fix everything. But it broke the silence. Ethan walking along the river. Not alone. Not afraid. The water sounds the same. It always will. But the world around it listens now. Some cases go cold. Some hope fades. But when the truth finally surfaces, it doesn't shout. It stays. And it changes what comes next.